Welcome to the Susan Brender Show. It's all about you, featuring shows on health and wellness, the performing arts, politics, and people who inspire you to be your very best. And now, here's Susan Brender.
I'm Susan Brender, and this is the Susan Brender Show. My guest today is Sara Alijewicz, and Sara is an attorney here in Florida. Now, Sara earned her bachelor's degree from Illinois Wesleyan University and her law degree at Southeastern University. She's practiced law for over 20 years in the courtroom, and in fact, she's had so much experience that I'm going to ask her what has motivated her to be a judge. Now, that's what the discussion is about, because judges, I would almost challenge people, 1,000 people, to really explain what a judge does. Now, she says, and I think this is terrific, she says, I have dedicated my legal career to serving the citizens of Palm Beach County, Florida. As the former general magistrate, I've spent every day for the last 8 years working in the courthouse. Let's get right to it, and let's talk to Sara a little bit about what she's done and what inspired her to be in this field, and all the things that go with being, and I hope you don't mind this, Sara, a politician. And here we go. Sara Alijewicz. For our audience, I said in my intro to you that if you approached about 1,000 people, all ages, I think I would say that most of them don't understand what a judge does. Am I asking the right question?
Yeah, I believe you're right. It is. Most people don't get involved with the legal system, and when they do become involved with the legal system, it's kind of a mystery about why they're there and who they're in front of. And of all of the elections that people do have to face, of the 3 branches of government, the only branch of government that can take your liberty, meaning put you in jail, or could take your house or money, is a judge. So it's very important when people vote to know something about people that are running for those offices.
Yeah. Now, you're in a county. This is not a Supreme Court judge. This is
correct.
Not a state judge.
It's a trial level county race, yes.
Yeah, this is totally county. Now, you made a good point, and you said that people ought to know what a judge does because of all the power that they have in their hands. How do they get to know the judge?
Well, the best thing people can do for all the judicial candidates, and there are many in Palm Beach County this election cycle, there's 5 different races, is to check their background and their qualifications. And each person, before they vote, has to make a decision about whoever the candidate is, that their qualifications seem to fit with someone who they believe can be fair and impartial and unbiased when they're making a decision about a legal case, because what a judge is tasked to do is apply the law to the facts and ignore public opinion, no matter at what cost it is to the individual judge, because, there's fallout to these decisions sometimes.
Yeah, and I remember when I was much younger and I lived in New York, I used to go to court sessions at night, and I found them fascinating. Now, would you recommend that people go to the court? And in fact, shouldn't the schools take them to the court so that they learn a little bit about the functions of our government with regard to judges and, lawyers and all the things that they do?
I agree 100%. I wish when I was a student that the government classes that we took would have taken us to court, even if it wasn't a special class, such as in a high school class, even in the middle school level. I think it's very important for the public, as young as middle school level, go to court and understand the procedure, not technically, but they can see how it works, that it's accessible, and to be educated, because people don't understand when they come to court, oftentimes it's the first time even what they're there for, because most people, thankfully, aren't involved in the judicial system in any way, whether it's, sometimes people get a divorce and it's a 2-minute hearing, or they get a traffic ticket and it's a 2-minute hearing. But if it's anything beyond that, most people don't have any idea how to navigate the whole judicial system by themselves.
Yeah, there's been a lot of stories about politicians. Politicians have reputations that don't always stand up to what is expected of them. And where does a judge fit into sort of that situation? Because, we have corruption, we have all kinds of issues that go on in our government, and I know that the Supreme Court has a lot of influence in changing the laws and doing a lot of different things. But what about a circuit court judge? What is really some of the things that you do that really stand out?
Well, the most important thing to the public is that the judges that they appear in front of are impartial, and that they give the people that appear in front of them the time to present their case and not feel like they're rushed through their case and they get their day in court. Many times most people only have maybe one or two interactions with the judicial system, hopefully. And so judges can't change the law, but they can change people's perceptions about the legal system. If judges are fair and respectful to the public, then the public has more confidence in the judiciary. And I think that's probably the most important thing a judge can do, is to make sure that when a person, whether it's a juror or a witness or a person that's involved in litigation, comes to court, that they know that they're being respected, that no one in the courtroom disrespects them, especially the judge, even other lawyers, witnesses, whoever, that everyone feels respected, so that it's not a situation where anyone feels intimidated or talked down to in the courtroom. I think it's very, very important that the public feels like it's an important thing, but not a frightening thing.
Yeah. A lot of people learn a little bit about what judges do by television because they have these court judges, and Judge Judy is a perfect example. In fact, my understanding is that thousands and thousands of people watch her show and they feel that they're being entertained. Now, is there any reality to what she does as far as you're concerned?
That is entertainment. I know she was a good judge when she was a judge, but what she does now is entertainment, because really there's no rules of evidence. I believe the people, when they come to her courtroom, they agree to waive all the regular rules that people that would be entitled to when they come to these things, because they're there to entertain the public. So that is in no way what really happens in any courtroom in any legitimate sense, because there's no real rules being followed. But it is entertaining.
Now,
I'm entertained by it too. So,
of course. I mean, you can't help it, because the people are fighting and they're screaming and they're doing all kinds of things that you say, "Oh my God, could they do that in a court? And will the judge accept that?" It's a really funny thing. Now, what made you want to become a judge?
I've been in public service pretty much my whole life. I was in the medical field before I went to law school, and I thought I wanted to do medical malpractice because of my medical background. But once I worked at Legal Aid when I was in law school, I really enjoyed being able to serve people who were underserved and underrepresented. And I feel it's very important that people are committed to serving the public, and that's why I decided I wanted to follow through. Ultimately, I think one of the best public service things a lawyer can do is to be a judge, because people need their disputes settled fairly and impartially, and by someone who's even-tempered and not going to act like Judge Judy, God bless her heart. But that's not really what people want when they come to court. They want somebody who's going to listen carefully and evaluate the evidence and really pay attention to what happened before they make a decision that's going to affect them. Because no matter how small your dispute is when you come to court, it may seem like nothing to somebody who is involved in the legal system, but to some people an $80 dispute is very important, because to some people it is the principle of the thing that has to be right, and so it's very important when decisions are made that they're taken seriously and that the right decision is made for the right reason.
Yeah, that leads me to talking a little bit about a magistrate. You are, or you were, a magistrate, and what is a magistrate, and what are the responsibilities of a magistrate?
Okay, magistrates are like a very interesting little unique thing that's used differently throughout Florida. In this particular county circuit, because Palm Beach County is one circuit, they've decided to use magistrates in family law, mental health, substance abuse, like Marchman Act cases when people are drug addicted, and various issues such as that. Because the caseloads are so high, the circuit judges and the judges can't handle all the cases on a timely basis, because many of the things have to be heard timely. They can't wait 6 months to be heard. They have to be heard next week. So the magistrates hear cases, and they have hearings and trials, and they issue all the rulings for the judges, and they're called quasi-judicial officers. So they don't actually serve at the pleasure of the governor. They serve at the pleasure of the chief judge in each county in Florida.
Yeah.
So they're quasi-judicial officers who hear cases and are tasked with doing all the rulings and taking care of everything. It's very similar to the magistrate system in the federal court system.
Yeah. You know, you brought up the word mental health, the words mental health, and the issues surrounding that particular need. Now, are we doing anything to really help people with mental illnesses? Because you hear every day about people with PTSD and people with all different kinds of problems, mental problems, and they've been let out of all the institutions, and they are on our streets. So let's say that somebody comes to court and they have mental problems, and you have to do something, and I want you to define the Baker Act. You probably have been involved in doing Baker Acts for a long time. What is a Baker Act, and what do you think about how people with mental diseases are being treated?
The Baker Act, there's two procedures for the Baker Act. One is a procedure where a family member or a person with knowledge about a person's mental health can actually come directly to the court and ask the court to Baker Act the person on an ex parte, meaning with them not being present, because obviously it would be difficult to get the mentally ill person to come to court for this hearing. So they present enough facts to show that they're a danger to themselves or others. And that can be anything. That could be that they haven't left their house in 3 weeks and they don't believe they've eaten. It could be that they're roaming the streets, homeless, or they're cutting anything. It could be anything you can imagine that has to do with mental illness, or even the elderly person who's got dementia and just can't care for themselves anymore. Mm-hmm. So the person can come to the court, and then the magistrate will have a hearing, and if the person proves that the person is a danger to themselves, then the person will be taken to a mental health facility, and they'll be kept there for 72 hours. If the facilities, there's several facilities, there's 10 in Palm Beach County, I believe 10, decide that the person needs to be held longer, then there is a petition request filed with the court where there's a hearing held within 5 days of the initial placement, where there's an appointed lawyer for the mentally ill person. The state attorney represents the facility, and there's a full hearing held to determine whether the facility has proven the person needs to be kept longer. In some of these cases, people can be kept for many weeks. They can be kept 5 days. Sometimes people are committed to the state hospital, which means that they're very seriously mentally ill, and they need services that can only be provided in the state mental hospitals, there's only 2 in the state of Florida, one in South Florida and one in North Florida.
Right. Now, do you see an increase, Sarah, in this problem? Is it getting worse or is it getting better?
I think the easy answer to that is neither. I think that mental health issues are pretty much the same across the board in the 8 years I've done it. What is not more available are outpatient services once the person is stabilized and sent into the community. That is somewhat lacking because it's difficult, because people that are in these situations, they need help once they're discharged. Lacking. Finances are tough with these states. All the states, it's hard financially to support these services.
Yeah, and that brings me to the question, from a personal standpoint, if you had to change something that's taking place in Palm Beach County as a lawyer, as a magistrate, as a judge, what would be the thing that you'd want to do?
I think there could be some legislative changes that a judge could not do or a magistrate could not do. The laws need to be tightened up a bit because more so in the Marchman Act area, which is substance abuse, not mental health. I mean, I think as far as the Baker Act, when people are mentally ill and they're institutionalized involuntarily, those laws are pretty effective because they're not allowed to leave those facilities. But under the Marchman Act, which is a substance abuse statute where people are unable to control their addiction to either alcohol or drugs, people that go to the substance abuse facilities can just leave the facilities. And if it kind of is against common sense, if they have lost control over their ability to not abuse substances, then they're going to want to leave the facility. So our facilities kind of don't have any control over keeping the people. They can try to talk them into staying, but they're not like a facility where the doors are locked and you can't leave until 5 days is over.
Right.
So, and to that extent, I think it would be helpful if the legislature took a look at that and changed the statute a little bit to make it a little more strict, so that people don't go into a Marchman Act, a substance abuse facility and walk out the same day to go back out on the street and use drugs or whatever the case may be.
You know, we have a reputation here in Palm Beach for being one of the biggest, how should I say, the biggest area that houses and has people who are who are addicted and just go for recovery. What do you attribute to that?
I don't really know. I mean, I think Florida and California both have nice weather, because I think California has the same sort of reputation. Mm-hmm. I think that it seems attractive to send people here, because I really don't know. But both Florida and California really are big addiction center places.
Right.
So I don't know if that's part of it, and they're easy to get to, for like California, the West Coast, and Florida, the East Coast. But Florida does have a lot of addiction recovery facilities, more so than, for example, the Midwest.
Sure. Now, you're a professional, so I understand that you have to be non-biased. But I'm just curious how, on a personal front, the experiences that you had with, say, very young and very educated people who are on drugs, do you have any stories that stand out in your mind that talk about that, this human behavior that you have and everybody else has? How do you feel when you see this? Because you have children, and I know your children are wonderful and they don't have these problems, but you see other people's children, and it must be horrible.
It is horrible, and I can tell you it doesn't matter what your station in life or your socioeconomic situation is, it affects every family. I could not pinpoint any explanation, because oftentimes there's people that have children who are fine, and then another child is obviously not fine.
Right.
I think it's really inexplicable to figure out what it is. I just think that drugs are the pharmacological agents that people are exposed to now. I just think that there's a lot of science that needs to go into figuring out what impact it has on the human brain. That's my just personal opinion, because I'm no expert in that field, but it crosses every strata of every segment of society.
Right. Well, I also am curious. I want the people to know, my audience to know, that you are running for county court judge.
Right.
There must be a process. So walk us through the process for the moment. You started out as a lawyer. You became a magistrate, and now you're running for county court judge. Okay. How does one go through the process? Because can anybody become a judge if they're get the popular vote?
You have to be. The requirements to be a judge in Florida is that you have to be a member of the Florida bar for 5 years, whether you're a circuit court judge or a county court judge. There's two ways to become a judge. One is through an appointment process with the governor, and the other one's through election. Elections happen when judges retire at a particular stage in their election cycle of 6 years, and this particular year 5 judges retired. Ordinarily, when judges leave the bench, they get appointed by the governor. So really the only requirement for any of these things is that you be a member of the Florida bar for 5 years, in good standing, obviously. Mm-hmm. So then you qualify, you pay a filing fee, and you run for judge like any other elected office.
Are you
really
enjoying
difficult
the process?
because you can't give any opinion.
I know. Are you enjoying the process?
I am. I did not think I would. I did not think I would at all, because I am not an extrovert by any means, but I have not found it to be as difficult as I thought it would be.
Well, that's
stick
great.
my hand out to strangers and say, "Hi, I'm Sara. I'm running for judge. Nice to meet you."
Yeah. Okay. You said that you're an introvert, but when you know your subject when you have all the knowledge that you need to have, that is very important for our court system and for the people that you represent. I guess it overcomes the introvert that you are and makes you a person who is passionate about what you want to do. So maybe that's a really terrific thing.
It was something I wanted to do, and no matter how uncomfortable it made me, I decided I was going to commit myself to it and do the very best I can. And I think I am doing the very best I can.
I'm sure you are. Now, last but not least, there are a number of people who have said that Sara is absolutely wonderful, and they endorse you. Now, I see on your pamphlet that I have that you have been endorsed by the Fraternal Order of Police, the National Organization of Women, the Director of Legal Aid. Pretty good, huh?
Yep. I'm very happy with my endorsements. The Sun-Sentinel also endorsed me since my pamphlet got printed, so that was really nice.
Good. All right. So last but not least, I think it's really important that we learn a little bit about Sara. So, let's finish this on the note. Who is Sara? Will you please stand up?
Sara is a mom of a 33-year-old son who, my son Michael got his PhD from Vanderbilt in English, and he works at an international student exchange program in Arlington, Virginia. And my daughter, Katie's 30, and she's the Deputy Director of Medicaid for the state of Rhode Island. I'm very proud of both my kids. They're really, really good kids and have made us very proud. And my daughter Katie's married and has a grandson, and his name's Noah, and he's going to be a year old next week. So I'm mom and a grandma. My husband and I have been married for 34 years. He's a CPA. We just raised our kids and worked hard, and I raised public servants too. My daughter's a public servant. My son works for a nonprofit. We really feel it's important to help people, and that's how I was raised, and that's how I raised my children.
It's wonderful, Sara. Now, I always like to give my guests the last word. Is there something you want to tell our audience, our listeners?
Check me out at saraforjudge.com, or I'm on Facebook also at Sara for Judge. So either one of those two places, if you want to look anything else about me, about my qualifications or my background, you could check that out.
So my guest today, Sara Alijewicz. So the election is going to be on what day?
August 28th.
August 28th. So everybody in the audience who is from Palm Beach County, Florida, I really say Sara is a very intelligent and a very capable and a very interesting woman who wants to be judged for the right reasons, not the wrong reasons. So give her a shot. And thank you very much for being on my show, Sara.
Appreciate it. And remember, it's nonpartisan, so everybody gets to vote.
Thank you for listening to The Susan Brender Show. To be a guest, email sebrender@yahoo.com.